Mm. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And I am so excited to be with you today. Um, Greetings. I'm greeting you today on behalf of Agape Renaissance Center right here in Cleveland, Ohio. And I am so honored and so happy to greet you on this day. It is what a fabulous day. Fabulous, fabulous day. Super Bowl Sunday, so I will not keep you long, but fabulous nonetheless. And so today I want to reintroduce those of you who have not heard of Agape Renaissance Center. Agape Renaissance Center's purpose is to establish an atmosphere that encourages each person to consciously and persistently build a more abundant life, exhibit unconditional love in every aspect of that life, and to love God without reservation. And for those of you, I apologize, I'm going to have to start that all over again. So greetings, 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 and welcome on behalf of Agape Renaissance Center. For some reason, inadvertently started prior to the video starting. And so it is my honor to greet you this day, this Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, on behalf of Agape Renaissance Center. Agape Renaissance Center's purpose is to establish an atmosphere that encourages each person to consciously and persistently build a more abundant life, exhibit unconditional love in every aspect of that life, and to love God without reservation. And to that end, we are a center that encourages and talks about practical spirituality. That means a spirituality with tools that you can use like in real time to make real changes in your life. And so one of those tools that we use is a thing called an affirmation. And affirmations and denials, but affirmations in particular, are truth statements that we speak over ourselves in order to change our minds about things, the conditions of our lives. Because out of our mouths, out of our thoughts, out of our own being comes the issues and the conditions of our life. And sometimes those things we do need to make sure that we are shifting so that we are experiencing the life that we so choose or so desire. And so to that end, we normally talk about and use affirmations. And so today, like any other Sunday, I'm going to grab from my trusty pile of affirmations as I answer this call from, as I answer the call. We're going to choose from this stack of affirmations, and then we will go from there. This one, all of these affirmations that I use were lovingly prepared by our Rosemary Capel in order for us to, every Sunday we would get up and we would share an affirmation. And so to that end, I will share these with you. I'll say them twice, and if you so choose to repeat along with me the second time around, that would be fabulous. But you can use or employ any of these affirmations at any time in your life. If you need to speak a word over yourself, over your affairs, over the conditions of your life, affirmations are something that you can use. They are affirmative statements spoken in the I language because you're speaking them about yourself, over yourself. And they are powerful in their ability to shift conditions. So here we go with this, with the affirmations taken from 2019. Here we are. And just making sure that I have everything all set. There are a couple of things that I normally see that I am not seeing. And just want to make sure that I have these all set. All right, so the first one is, when I allow my light to shine, I unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. I'm going to say that again. When I allow my light to shine, I unconsciously give others the permission to do the same. No amount of guilt can change the past, and no amount of worrying can change the future. Again, no amount of guilt can change the past, and no amount of worrying can change the future. Here's the next one. A river of compassion washes away my anger and replaces it with love. Just imagine that. I mean, feel that, right? A river of compassion washes away my anger and replaces it with love. The next one. I am guided in my every step by Spirit, who leads me towards what I must know and do. That's good when you stand in that energy. Here it is again. I am guided in my every step by Spirit, who leads me towards what I must know and do. And the last one, my body is healthy, my mind is brilliant, my soul is tranquil. Speak that over yourself. Let the words just kind of cascade down over you, covering every nook and cranny of your being. My body is healthy. My mind is brilliant. My soul is tranquil. I tell you, out of our mouths comes the issues of our lives. Sometimes we have to speak to the conditions of our life in order to see a shift or a change. So when you're dealing with anything in your body, begin to speak to it. Speak love over it. We have to at times, just tell ourselves that we are moving with grace and ease. That pain, there is no pain. Pain is here just to inform me. And as I listen, pain disappears. Just speaking words over the different parts of our being, the different parts of our body, so that we can start to experience what it is that we so desire. I love that. All right, and so our weekly reading comes from out of the Science of Mind magazine, and I am so honored to be able to share it with you. These were lovingly prepared by Reverend Raymond Anderson, and so today, the affirmation is diversity is a superpower. That's the title of it. Diversity is a superpower. His first quote comes from Lena Waite. And it says, the things that make us different are our superpowers. The things that make us different are our superpowers. And from out of Ernest Holmes, What Religious Science Teaches, he says, the quote he uses is, behind all is unity, through all is diversity, saturating all is a divinity. Saturating all is a divinity. There we go. All right, so let me read what Reverend Raymond wrote for today. How many breeds of dogs are there, he asks. How many types of apples? How many shapes of a snowflake? That which is infinite, that which is the infinite one, shows up through and as all of the diverse magnificence in the world. There are many who are unable and others who are unwilling to see the magnitude of all the diversity that surrounds us and makes up our lives, including a diversity of cells, tissues, organs, thoughts, and feelings. The time of being rugged individual is no more. It is not a paradigm that serves life. Manifest destiny in truth greatly damaged or destroyed the lives of indigenous Americans. The belief in manifest destiny also resulted in colonization of people across the world. The colonizers could not and would not appreciate the diversity of the indigenous people. I once thought I could protect the world by myself, but I was wrong. Working together, we saved the planet. And I believe that if we stay together as a team, we would be a force that could truly work for the ideas of peace and justice. This quote was from Superman in Justice League Secret Origins. Should land in our consciousness. It should land in our consciousness, however we feel about superheroes. The meaning is powerfully truthful and impactful. If we have the courage to act and the curiosity to ask what is ours to do collectively. We are not here to do it alone. Our honored diversity is what will unify and heal the world. So the affirmation that he uses with this is today I look at all the ways I may have ignored diversity and consciously chose to get to know someone who is not like me. Yes, amen to that. I love this idea of, we talked this month during Black History Month a lot about this idea of diversity and inclusion, and that shows up in so many different ways. Hopefully it shows up not only in the people that you expose yourself to, but also the thoughts that you entertain. Because at some point, if we are not willing to be open to new and different possibilities, then all we're doing is singing to the choir or listening to the same music that we've always listened to. So in the vein of talking about, Raymond Anderson's contributions this month to the Science of Mind magazine, I thought I would choose one of my heroes' quotes as well. The great and wonderful Yoda. And Yoda says in the Star Wars thing, he says, do or do not. There is no try. And when I thought about that, I thought to myself, like, wow, we have been told this over and over again in various ways, but we refuse to listen to or entertain this idea that either we do it or we do not, there is no try. And for many of us, we might think that, you know what, I put forth some type of effort, and in putting forth an effort, that's a trying. But what gets me about that idea of just efforting without accomplishing means that a lot of times we quit before the task is accomplished. We quit short of the goal because sometimes we make up in our mind it is just not possible for us. But we get the messages from everywhere. In the Bible that we were told, ask and it shall be given unto you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be open. We've been given these ideas over and over again. And what we do a lot of times is we give up before we've actually given things a chance to unfold. Say for instance, I have a camera on the front of my house and it sits right at my door. I don't have any need to see the street or even who walks on my grass. All I want to see is that when somebody knocks on my door. And it's interesting because a lot of times I have people who come to the door and they knock without there being an anticipation or an idea, hesitation even, to wait until somebody actually answers. It's a different thing when you go to a door and you are expected. And a lot of times when you're expected and somebody doesn't knock or open the door immediately, you still stand there with this anticipation that maybe, just maybe, she didn't hear. Maybe there is something else I need to do. But there are so many people that come and they knock without having an idea or an anticipation that someone will be there to answer. And so the messages, even though we've received them, there is something about us that becomes, what do I want to say? What's the word I want to say? We become accustomed to not receiving the promise that has been given. And for some reason, it's popping into my mind to share that I went to see one of my great uncles in Detroit. I happened to be in the city one time just because I was there working, and I drove through, and in spite of not having seen my great uncle in a while or not calling ahead of time, I went to the door and I knocked. I knew where his house was. I went to his house and I knocked, and no answer. And I knocked again and no answer. And it was so interesting because now, because I know he's in his 90s, I walked around the house and I'm looking at the house, and I knocked at the back door anticipating an answer. And I go again to the front door and I'm still knocking, anticipating an answer, because I thought to myself, where could he possibly be at this time of day? So being the stubborn one that I was, I sat down on the steps. Now, about 15 minutes into all of this knocking, I finally just sat down on the steps and decided, let me look up some of his children's phone numbers and start making calls, because I refused to leave the space without seeing my great uncle. Well, it was so interesting because I wasn't able to get any of my cousins, but finally I see the door as it cracks open, and he barks at me like, "Who is it?" And when I turned to look at him, I started talking as soon as I looked at him, and it was so funny because it only took him a couple of seconds to say, "I know exactly who you are. Come on in." A lot of times what we do, though, is we give up in the face of what obstacles may be there. We give up before we receive the answer. A lot of times, even this idea of giving up on God, or giving up on a situation, giving up on a dream, giving up on some possibility, not just the knock at the door, but we give up. We give up, and there is something about us in our own psychology that just throws in the towel even before the bell has been rung, even before the call has been made, even before anything happens. It's really interesting because we get messages from some of every place as if they are just floating through the air. These messages are speaking to us and telling us certain particular things. Sometimes it's an inspirational thing. Maybe it's telling us that, he's absolutely in the house. Or maybe it's telling us that, that you can do it, that giving you that attaboy, giving you that inspiration, whatever it means to aspire to what is possible. We hear this and we know that it is there, but yet and still, there is still this part of us that gets discouraged. It was interesting because as I reminded myself of this, I thought to myself that sometimes encouragement and discouragement can seem like it's two sides of the same coin. And we are choosing which one we want to entertain on any given or particular day. And so when we're in those situations, we have to first check ourselves and to see where we are in our own spirit to know whether or not we can receive naturally the inspiration or if we are turning to the discouragement based on our own disposition. Let me give you another example. A lot of times I can remember, watching television with friends of mine, and then making a comment about how somebody is so beautiful that they see on the television. And of course, that is one of the reasons why they got the job, because they are rather pleasing to the eye, and they know that people will tune in to watch people that they like. And so you'll see people who will talk about the people who come across the television screen as if they are so wonderful or so beautiful, or even as if they know them. Now, the people who are watching this unfold is really interesting to me. How a person receives this who is on the other end. To look at, I can remember a time that to look at a television show and to hear somebody exclaim the virtues of how beautiful a Halle Berry is, or a Pamela Anderson is, or how beautiful Chaka Khan was, or how well Whitney Houston could sing. A lot of times the people on the other end might be discouraged because they're thinking, well, if that is the bar that is being set, I must myself not be able to fit into the pageantry that is presented before me. And so you'll see a lot of times people will take offense. I see it all the time now. Somebody will think that if a person is a good actor or a good actress, then it is saying something that is somehow derogatory towards them. When I was much younger, I had a radio show. And I remember somebody saying to me after the show was over, "Wow, you had some great callers." And in my mind, what I heard, instead of me hearing I had great callers, I heard that, "Oh my goodness, your show sucks so bad. Thank goodness for your great callers." And so what I recognized in those instances is that a lot of times it is based on how we see ourselves rather than what another person is saying. We want to imply intent to what a person is saying rather than checking in ourselves to see where we are on the spectrum. When you are used to hearing something positive, you hear things positive all the time. However, when your mindset is set on the negative, what you hear is negative, no matter if what is being said is positive enough or positive or not, because what you hear is where you are in consciousness rather than what is being said. And so we have to back up. You guys, all of this stuff, whether we're talking about spirituality, religion, all of this stuff is about figuring out who we are. When we talk about the walk of Jesus, we're not just talking about Jesus, we are talking about ourselves. We are not sitting there saying that, that with Jesus all things are possible. With you, all things are possible. I need you to sit with that for just a minute, with this idea that, and I like to put this in the framework that, whether we're talking about Jesus, or whether we're talking about Socrates, or we're talking about so many people, they didn't put their own things in writing because they thought to themselves that this could be misconstrued. As a matter of fact, the teachings of Jesus were not written down until literally centuries after he had already walked this earth, after he had already preached what he was going to preach, because he understood the tendency for people to get caught up in him rather than in the message that he came to teach. So if he is telling you that you are to pick up your cross and follow him, it means that your cross is your burden to bear. The things that you are going through is what you must grow through. The things that are on you to do, you must do. Listen to this for just a second, because I need you to hear it in a different kind of way. I mean, to put yourself into the story. If, say, for instance, he says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the world. I am thy bread, thy wine, thy water, thy meat. If you could just think about, this is not something that is up there floating somewhere, but the very within you. I am thy eternal life. I am thy immortal being. This is not talking about somebody else. This is not talking about something in an imaginary realm or something that you have got to stretch to. I am even the resurrection, so that if thy body, thy home, and thy supply were destroyed, if all these were destroyed, I will raise them up. It's not something somebody else is doing. It's what you are to do. It's the truth that you are to find in your life. Just give me a few days, right? All you need is a few days. Give yourself the 3 days and your own resurrection is possible. I know that some of you will like reject this idea. But listen, I am closer to thee than your breath. Right? Which means that you don't need to go someplace searching for it. It is right where you are, nearer than your hands or your feet. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And if you were to mount up to heaven, I will be there. This is your own consciousness talking to you. This is your own self speaking through you. But the thing about it is that if you are accustomed to being a victim of the world, if you are accustomed to not having this experience for yourself, what we do is we try, but we don't wait until and know that this is me speaking to me. This is the God within me speaking to myself. Oh, y'all may not feel me, right? I get that you may not get that all of this, all of the trials and tribulations, all the things that you go through are not about something else somewhere else, but about turning within and knowing that it is possible for you. And even at the times when you feel as if you've fallen short, maybe if what we do is we look again, we might see that we have ended up in the exact place we are supposed to, so that we can make the things happen that are necessary to happen. It's interesting because, sometimes we get in those moments where we can see the truth about our own being. And at other times we start to think that, not so much. We give up. We sometimes don't even attempt. We sit down before the job is ever done. I was listening to something earlier, and this idea of the Savior came up, and it was talking about who is your Savior. Maybe if you recognize that yourself as it, you will stop looking for somebody else to do it, and then do what it is that you need to do. Walk your own walk. Try your own hand at what you're supposed to do. So whatever the case may be, right? You can make your bed in hell. And it says, and I will be there too. Wherever it is. So don't get caught up in what your fears are. Do not fear. Do not be discouraged, because I am with you always, even until the end of time. That which is within you is always there, and it is never forsaking you. And it is waiting for you to get a clue about your own ability to transform the conditions of your life. But as long as you don't have the ability to believe in you, you will always be in the victim role. And in that role, you will think that somehow you are powerless and unable to do it. Get up, take up your bed and walk is the commandment. Not that I'm going to pick it up for you, but now in this moment, at least put forth the effort to get up and walk. And see, doesn't something, whatever that may be, that unseen hand that we talk about, support you in your efforting. But you must make the effort in order to see something transform. Now, I will tell you, we get so accustomed to all the times before where we've fallen short. And you know how we say we fall short and come short of the glory of God. That is our accustomed type of thing, right? We get so accustomed to that even before we try, we give up. Even you're probably sitting there saying, "Oh, this girl, why is she telling me this? That this is not right." You're sitting there and you're negating and thinking how it can't be correct, instead of trying to figure out how it can be correct. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy. You are not only the rescuer, you are the rescuee. But until and unless you understand that you are it, you will always be looking to someone else to say, to do or to support you in this. You can, I'm not saying not to say yes to Jesus, right? You can say I and Jesus are one, but you know that it's you that's got to make the effort. You've got to get up. You've got to stand up. You've got to take your bed and walk. It's you that must do these things. So the waiting is not about tomorrow, or the waiting is not for somebody else. It is always with you, even until the end of time. So get up and take your bed and walk. But you know, one of the things that we do is we put ourselves in this victim role over and over again. We start thinking about, the intent of the things that are happening to us. Wonder if, because I used to, when I was younger, I used to be like this too. I used to think that somehow whether it was my father putting me down, or the teacher giving me a bad grade, or on the job getting pushback on my ideas, I was always of this mindset that there was something that was against me. But maybe, and then, of course, when something comes up and it seems to be against us, we kind of read and put all this meaning into it, as if to say that there is a concerted effort to keep you down, right? People pushing you down, people telling you what you cannot do. People. We get caught up in that idea. But, there was this one time when what I realized is that my father, it seemed like every time he was pushing me down, he pushed me down not with the thought that I would stay down, but with this idea that the push down developed my muscles to the degree to which I could push back or I could stand up. He didn't say to me that this was for my own development. It was just what he did. It was how he handled a situation. And it wasn't until I started to push back that I really got that it was an exercise to strengthen me as opposed to weaken me. And a lot of times what we do is we think that it is about the disempowerment, when what it says that what person meant for evil, God meant for our good. And so they put the right people in our path so that they can give us the resistance that we need to develop our own muscles. our own muscles. I heard this story one time about a guy who was trying to get enlightened. And, for some reason, I get these stories about enlightenment. And this guy wanted to ask a yogi, why, what do I need to do in order to be enlightened? And so this yogi told the guy to follow me. And he walked out into the water, and he kept walking out into the water. And finally, when they get to a certain point, the yogi stops and he turns and he looks at him and he presses the guy's head and he pushes him underwater. And the guy, for a minute there, he stopped and he was like thinking I don't know what he was thinking, right? He could have been thinking that this guy is a yogi. He couldn't possibly be trying to kill me. And at first he didn't fight. He didn't struggle. But then after he started struggling for his breath, he started flailing and he started trying to fight against him and trying to get up out of the water so that he didn't drown. And finally, when he came up out of the water, he asked the yogi, what was that about? And the yogi says, when you want to experience this life, he says, you've got to want it as bad as you wanted that breath. You have to fight for it. And so what is it that causes you to fight for your own awareness? What is it that causes you to fight for what it is that you desire, to fight for enlightenment, to fight for truth, to fight for yourself? What is it that causes you to fight for love, for your relationships, for your family? What is it that causes you to do that struggle that is necessary to achieve what it is that you desire? It's that fight that you have to have in order for you to achieve what it is that you desire to achieve in your life. And so all of this becomes about this look again at what it is that you have perceived as this obstacle, and see instead that it is not something that is meant to stop you, but rather something that is meant to help you and to develop you. I know that my father didn't say it in those words, in those terms, but it was up to me to understand what was happening to me and for me. And so the moment I found out, or I got the awareness that what he wanted me to do was to struggle with ideas, to wrestle around with these thoughts, to develop myself, whether it was verbally or physically. Once I got that there was something there to do, then I set about doing that instead of always kibitzing and complaining about what my father did or didn't do. You guys, your life it may seem like it is an obstacle course, but it is an obstacle course that is designed by one that loves you absolutely. And if you give up before you have gotten the victory, then that's not on God. It's not on somebody else. It's on you. So the thing is, do or do not, but do not sit there and talk about, I'm just going to try for a minute and then walk away. Do it. Do it. And then through the struggle, you will see that what it was that was meant to happen to you and for you is happening. I think it's so beautiful when we look at the stories and the people, whether we're looking at stories, biblical stories, or any other story of people who were actually trying and efforting towards this. When we look and see and get a glimmer of this, hopefully what it is that we do is that we stop looking at life through the lens of a victim and to begin to see that this is the path that I must walk. Yesterday, I don't know why, I was listening to that song, like Walk Like an Egyptian, right? And it kept playing over and over again, or I kept playing it over and over again. Because there was a part of me that thought to myself, like, how is it that a person walks? How is it that an Egyptian walks? And what is an Egyptian, right? And we know from biblical stories, we know from all of these different stories that at one time, the Egyptians, these people were enslaved people. And they needed to walk up out of walk up out of their own enslavement, their own victimhood. But even once they walked out of it, Moses led them to supposedly leading them to the promised land. And yet they sojourned in the wilderness for 40 years, because even though they had seen all these miracles and had done all of these things that they thought at one time was impossible, they still had that negative ticker tape playing in their minds. Well, you can keep playing the negative tapes if you want to. Or you can see that those negative tapes are not there to take you down, but to develop you into the person that you are to be. So instead of looking at it as a push down, as something that is meant to keep you down, you can begin to see the places in which it lifts you up, that is gearing you for the pop-up, that it is processing you. It is making you stronger, making you wiser, that it is there for your highest and best good. And I tell you, that's what faith looks like. That's what it looks like when we are moving in that vein. It looks like we not only believe in the word that's been put out there, but we also believe in ourselves and our own ability to overcome, to transcend, to make something new, something amazing happen. So don't get caught up in what it seems like has been against you. Figure out how to forgive all the places that you thought were against you. And once you do that, then look at it again and see how it could have been for you, right? See how the things that you've endured throughout your lifetime, if you look at them differently, right? If you allow yourself a different lens, if you just adjust your spectacles, how could this have been for my highest and best good? And then if you don't get the answer, wait on it. Right? Do or do not, there is no try, right? So wait on the answer for it. If you're already thinking that you know the answer, there is not going to be one forthcoming. What you've got to do is suspend your level of disbelief and ask the question, God, how could this that I've gone through, how could this have been meant for my blessing? How could I see this differently? How can I redefine what I've been looking at? How can I re-identify myself in this story so that I'm not the victim here? How can I see it in another way? All of these are powerful questions to sit with. Oh, I tell you, I love this, I kind of invoke Bayo Akomolafe's name on such an amazing number of things, because he always puts in this idea that there's this trickster god. Is his name? I can't call his name right now. Ishu is his name. This trickster god that, a lot of times we make it seem like we know the answer, but then there is a trickster that is in the midst. And that while you think that you are doing something that is bad, something that is against somebody, there's a trick that is there. That what you think you see is not quite the truth about things. And so we have to suspend our disbelief so that we can see the truth. I tell you, it's such a powerful way of shifting our awareness around things. But you have got to suspend your disbelief so that you can see it. I thank you. I thank you for being here. I will tell you, he who has an ear, let him hear, right? And for those of you who don't, then I suspect that this will sit with you until you get to such a place and at such a time that you understand what is being said, instead of just dismissing things, arbitrarily, which is what we do a lot of times. That's not. We kind of blow it off as if there is nothing there for us. But I say to you, Just hold it until it comes and in the fullness of time blossoms in you so that you can hear exactly what Spirit is saying to you. I thank you for your presence. I thank you for the ways in which you support this ministry. All of that information is available for you right here, so that if you want to support, please do. But I want to, just as I'm speaking this blessing over your life, knowing that you are the change that you have been waiting for, knowing that all things are possible when you believe, right? And when you act on that belief, don't just sit there. Take action as if you already know that it is done. And I tell you, it will be. Ask the question. If you don't get a thing right, speak into the universe. Ask the question. Ask to be shown. God, help me see this. Right? It's so wonderful when you allow yourself to do that. So the light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, the allness of God is. And so it is. I bless you. I thank you. And I will see you same time next week right here. Take care of yourself. I know that all things are working for your good. Even if you don't know it, it's working for your good. So give thanks.